See, there you go. So welcome. I don't know what it's doing around the rest of the state. I'm in West Hartford and it was sunny and now it's a little cloudy, but it's a good Monday, right? It's a good day to be at a bidders conference. We're so excited to be here with you. So I'm Liz Isaacs and I have Shannon Quinn Sheeran with me, and we're going to talk with you for the next hour about the new project RFP. Just housekeeping stuff really is, if you have a question, you can unmute yourself. You can put a question in chat. Go ahead and stop us as we're going, because we're looking at our list of friends with us today. We have just a mix of people we know. So a mix of folks who are veterans who have done this before. And then it looks like we have some new folks. And if you're new, ask questions, stop us, tell us what you understand and don't understand. We're happy to stop and pause. Shannon just put the slides in the chat box, so you have them there. They are also posted on the BOS website, and there are a lot of links in the presentation. So please, use the links. The information should be there. If you're not finding what you need, you're going to reach out to us and we're going to point you in the right direction. All right. So without further ado, let's take a look at our agenda. We're going to tell you why you're here. You know why you're here. We're going to do a little background on new project RFPs. We'll talk about what are the timelines and deadlines. We'll tell you what is available this year. We'll go through rules. There are sections that no matter what you're applying for, you're going to answer. Then there are some component specific sections. We're going to tell you how to apply and give you tips and tricks. The scoring is not ready yet, but as soon as it is, it will be on our website, and we'll also let you know when it's ready. It is helpful, I think, to look at the scoring sheet so that you know when the scoring committee meets, what they look at. Okay.
I want to just say before we move on from the agenda, even though I just moved the slide, also, so we're going to go through all the slides here and talk about all those things that Liz just said. And then if you're interested, at the end, I can go through, go into Zengen itself and go through the application there, if that's helpful for anyone. We'll do that after the slide.
Yep. And we are always happy to provide technical assistance on any of this. So these are the instructions. They're really helpful. Shannon, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think if you're in the instruction document, you have links to everything else. So
Yeah.
That's really your go-to, because that will link you for where you need to go. That'll link you for other helpful links. And as always, and I like to say this because so much of what happens in the HUD world and just the world in general feels like we're being tricked and there's smoke and mirrors. There's no smoke and mirrors here. This is a transparent process. We're excited to have people put projects forth. No one's ever trying to trick you here. So if you have a question, please ask us. And every year we try to make it more transparent and simple and easy, but please ask us questions and let us know if you're not understanding what we're saying or if something just doesn't make any sense. Okay. Next slide. So again, as the veterans on the call know, every year we compete with other COCs in the hopes of ending homelessness. We get about 47 million in BOS. And so the context here is, this is our RFP, our request for proposals, to ask you, if you're interested, to put in a new project application for either, and you hear us call it bonus or reallocation funds. So it's whatever funds we have available as a COC because folks have reallocated or because HUD has given us bonus funds. We don't know what we're getting yet, but we have to get the process started because it can be a lengthy one. And we also have a DV bonus funds again this year. So Shannon's going to talk more about the specifics and logistics, but each type has its own application. So if you apply for DV, you need to click somewhere. If you're applying for regular bonus, you click somewhere. If you're applying for both, you click in both places. As I just said, there's so much we don't know. We always throw that caveat out. Until HUD actually releases the Nofo, we don't have all the information, but we have enough information that we feel like you guys could get started. And those of you who have been through this before know we get started, things are preliminary, and then once the Nofo's out, we do back and forth and fix up budgets and applications together. And as always, we love seeing folks and familiar faces and our friends we've known for years apply, but we're always, this money is out there and available, and we always love seeing new faces at the table, and we always encourage new applicants to come into this process too. Okay. As I mentioned, ask us questions. We provide, we say technical assistance. So we aren't going to be able to tell you how to improve your application. We're not going to be able to give you your answers. But if you say, I don't know what to put in here, I don't know what you're asking, we are always here to clarify for any questions, anything anybody needs. So last year, this is not great news, there was only about $20 million available in what's called Tier 2 funding. So again, folks have heard, folks who've been around the table for a long time know that there's Tier 1 and Tier 2. And historically, the balance of state has put bonus projects in Tier 2. So we've prioritized funding renewals in Tier 1. And last year, Tier 1 projects were all funded, and that's what HUD said. HUD said, we're gonna, your renewals will all be funded if you put them in Tier 1. So we did that for BOS, but there was very little money nationally available, kind of new money beyond what was out there. And so we got very little money this year, which is not what usually happens to BOS. And we did get our score, and the COC did very well. The COC scored really high. So we're just throwing that out there to sort of set, not to be negative, but to set expectations that you could submit like the best application. And folks did a great job last year. And so it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the quality of your application. There are just so many factors at play. So we just want to make sure you know that it's highly competitive. It was highly competitive. We can't even anticipate, but we can imagine it could be highly competitive again this year. So we just sort of want to set expectations and provide some background for folks. Okay. So the timeline. So the RFP has been released. You're here today. Applications are due on the 6th. The scoring committee will meet, actually we have confirmed this, so we'll actually meet in July. Big question mark, when's the Nofo released? They said it could be late spring. We don't know. We've stopped trying to guess. So it's out when it's out. And then in the summer, the steering committee decides about ranking and how we're gonna put, what order we put the projects. We put summer 2022, probably that we'll all be in ASNAPs spending our summer days. Yep.
Right. So Margaret's asking, does that include DV bonus funds as well? I'm not sure what you're asking, Margaret. If there were limited DV bonus funds, is it just as competitive? Which
I meant for last year.
I'm glad you're saying that, Margaret. Thank you so much. That's actually a really important clarification. Yeah. We got DV funds. We got a lot of, so they're out of different pots of money. So thank you for saying
I wanted that clear. That's what I thought. So I wanted it.
No, thank you very much. That's a really important clarification. We got a lot of money in DV bonus, which is fantastic. Yeah. So thank you for saying that. I'm sorry, that was a good silver lining. I love a silver lining. So that is the silver lining. And then once, HUD lets us know, what's that? Oh, HUD lets us know when there are awards, and then folks do their grant agreements. Okay. All right, so what are we talking about? What can folks apply for? And this is really important because we've gotten some questions on this. So this year, the steering committee has decided that the priority for permanent supportive housing will be to fund services in congregate PSH projects, so a tax credit project, an ARPA or home project, or services in COC projects that have no money. So again, I'm speaking to the veterans out there, but what we call it sometimes are the legacy projects. So and Shannon can jump in. I know that there are projects in New Haven, Hartford, and Middletown, and probably statewide, that were funded because we wanted to get the dollars out there. We wanted rental assistance out there for folks, but they actually have no services attached to them. And I don't need to tell you folks, serving really vulnerable folks who need services. So that has been a priority for the steering committee. So that is one type. And as I mentioned before, other tax credit projects have set-asides often, or they have set-asides for people experiencing homelessness, but often do not have the service dollars needed. And so we have also funded those in the past. What we aren't funding this year, because we've gotten this question, are brand new PSH units where we're funding rental assistance and services. So that is new because in the past we have funded that. So we are not accepting applications for a brand new PSH project where you say, I want to go out and rent 10 units and provide services to those 10 people. This year, the steering committee voted that will not be a priority this year. Not that it's not important, but that we would focus for permanent supportive housing on these particular models. All right, no questions. We'll talk rapid rehousing. So rapid rehousing is available through either what we're calling the COC bonus, reallocation dollars, or the DV bonus. And this is creating new units of rapid rehousing for individuals or families. And so that would include tenant-based rental assistance and supportive services. Is there a question, Shannon? I'm not seeing.
Yeah, so it's about the last slide, the PSH. Would this apply to recipients of, is this TBV's tenant-based vouchers through housing authorities, et cetera? Or is it limited to subsidized housing units funded through those specific funding sources? It's the latter. Like they were very specific. We were very specific in the instructions about the types of subsidies that this can apply to. So it's everything that's listed in the instruction, not tenant-based vouchers through housing authorities.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Okay, let's keep moving.
Go next slide.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so who can apply? Not-for-profits can apply, states, local government, public housing agencies. Oh, I love that instrumentalities like of state and local governments. That sounds very fancy. This hasn't changed. These are the usual suspects of applicants.
All right, we have another question.
Yep.
Existing COC grants, do projects have to have absolutely no service dollars, or can they have dollars for some support but not others?
I know, good question. They have to have no dollars. That was explicit. Yeah, so you are
That's
right.
also different this year. Yeah.
Yeah, that is also. So thank you for those really good questions. But it is just for those folks who have, there are folks who have zero service dollars.
Yeah.
We have 200 units and zero service dollars. Yeah. So good.
I think, and then Amanda's asking if that's at the subrecipient level or the recipient. I think it's either, whoever's providing services, there's zero service dollars, right?
Yeah.
Zero COC service dollars.
Yes, but I'm wondering if we can talk offline. Because I don't think there's a scenario where one subrecipient does have service. I mean, if there's a subrecipient, there's a service provider. But Amanda, we can talk offline too if I'm not interpreting your question correctly. Okay, let's keep going. More guidelines. So you have to do, and again, this shouldn't be new for anybody. You got to do HMIS. You got to work with the CANs. You have to follow all the policies. You need to be in good standing with HUD, and you're going to answer some questions about that in the application. And we have, again, lots and lots of links. So you can take a look at the application, and these links will take you to the application. So comment section again. So this is for everybody's going to do something that looks like this. Okay. You're all going to do an applicant profile. You're going to talk about your experience, and there are going to be questions about how you're going to, how you have enough experience to do the project. You're using housing first. You're going to increase income. You're going to make sure that folks have access to mainstream resources. Hopefully you're doing a great job utilizing federal funds, and you have all the management structures in place to make this happen. And then for DV projects, there are going to be some DV specific questions. And this is an important point. So if you've done this in the past and you think, wow, I'm sorry, let's go on and then I'll make the point next. I'm sorry. That's the applicant profile. I'm going to say that after. And for the project description, everybody's going to tell us about what services are you providing? How are folks, again, going to get mainstream resources? You're going to tell us a little bit about outcomes. What's it going to look like? You're going to coordinate with partners, and you're going to make sure that the project can start and you'll be at full capacity in the right time frame. Supportive services, everybody's going to talk about obtaining and maintaining housing. You're going to answer some questions about critical time intervention, about CTI, and you're going to tell us what's your plan, how are folks going to get healthcare and employment and childcare services, and how they're assisted to get more employment and income.
I just want to say it's something that some of the reviewers had a critique about commonly last year was that top bullet where it says assist to obtain or remain in housing. The people were looking for more of a focus on how to keep people in housing once they found their unit and everything, and that was a little area of lack in some applications.
Oh, Shannon, that's great. Thank you for saying that, because there were a lot of notes about like, where's the eviction prevention? Where are you just making sure that they have every service they need and every assistance they need so that they don't lose their housing? That's great. Yes, that's a great tip. So for budgets, again, we put in a link. So you make sure you look at the instructions, and that has lots of information about admin and supportive services and indirect costs. And again, the folks who are on the call that we've worked with in the past know that you might submit a rapid rehousing project and say, I want to do 50 units and I'm going to serve these folks. And we may come back to you and say, we don't have enough money to do that, but we could do 20 units and let's look at families and singles and let's adjust these numbers. So we always work together on sort of what the final budgets look like. For match, this is only a rapid rehousing requirement. So let me say that again. If you are applying for PSH services, you are not worried. So you can go take a break for 10 seconds, 30 seconds, whatever it takes. No match for you, only for rapid rehousing. And then just remember, I'm not going to read through all of these requirements for rapid rehousing, because I will tell you it's a threshold review for us, which means if you do not provide the match, we don't even put your, we just aren't able to put your application forward to the scoring committee. So match is important for rapid rehousing. If you're confused or you don't know what I'm talking about, if this is the first time you've heard match, we're happy to provide additional resources to you and walk you through it. But it is a threshold requirement to have your application move ahead.
And the match, the being 25% of the total grant amount, we would have loved to make that the only kind of acceptable response in Zengen, but we didn't do that for this year. Maybe it's a future goal that we'll do, but it'll allow you to put in less match than is actually required. So just pay special attention to that when you're doing your application.
That's good. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about what makes these distinct. So you're going to have to answer some different questions depending on what project you're applying for. I think I can see part of it. Julie's asking, can you do in kind? You can, but I'm going to let Shannon give you a 30-second blurb about why cash is better.
Thanks. There's just a lot of paperwork, a lot of rules to follow. If you do in-kind match, you have to justify what you're providing. You have to say it's like a fair market rate and justify why you're charging as much for. There's lots of paperwork and documentation that you have to follow to be in line with HUD regulations on in-kind match, as people who do that and have been monitored can attest to. So we encourage cash match. It's just much simpler, much more streamlined.
You can, we do allow it in there, but we just, I think you guys have said you and Lauren have said every time you monitor, if it's in kind, there just are struggles sometimes with match.
Definitely.
I always want people to be in compliance with HUD.
Yeah.
Okay. So if I'm a PSH project, you guys, again, probably everybody on the call knows what PSH is, right? So folks, it's affordable housing and people get voluntary support services, and they're going to serve people who meet the HUD definition, both people experiencing homelessness and people who are disabled. The way we structure these projects is that DEMIS is the applicant. And as we just mentioned, so you don't need to provide the match. So no match for a PSH project. So it's people who meet the dedicated plus definition. We have some slides, which I won't read, but it will be there for anybody who dedicated plus is a new thing for. You'll see who the folks you can serve. And unless the project has another source of funding, which we're going to tell you most don't, we want to see at least 5,000 per unit and no more than 9,000. And the 9,000, just so folks know, is new. So at the, what month is this? This is May. At the last steering committee meeting, April steering committee meeting, we voted to raise it from 7,500 to 9,000. So you can be anywhere in that range. And that is another threshold requirement. So we really want to make sure you get your budgets right. So please fall into those, into that range. And then if you want to take a look at the DMIS rental assistance operations guide, even though you're not asking for the rental assistance piece, there's lots of information about services and rules that you need to know. Okay. So we're going to I'm going to have Shannon kind of move through these. I think almost everyone knows what dedicated plus is, but just make sure that these are the folks you're serving. And what we like to remind people is just a quick compliance issue. You know, it's on the project to make sure you're serving the eligible population. So if you're ever getting someone who's ineligible from the CAN or whatever the referral process, it's really on the project. So you got to make sure you're serving eligible folks. Because HUD, and I'm knocking on wood, has not, but can claw back money if you're not serving eligible people. So that's very important. Okay. So if you're going to apply for rapid rehousing, folks know that it's a time-limited affordable housing model with voluntary services that folks, so now as we talk about rapid rehousing, I'm going to talk about both DV, whether it's the DV bonus or the regular bonus, and I'll tell you when there's a distinction, but this is true for both the regular rapid rehousing and the DV rapid rehousing. So folks either need to be literally homeless or they need to be category 4 who meet the fleeing or attempting to flee DV. Oh, so I just said that. So yes, so you just need to make sure, again, really important, just you're serving the eligible population, whether it is a category 1 or a category 4 of the folks you're serving. So if you are doing the regular bonus, DOH is the applicant. And ACT is the fiduciary for the rental assistance. And unless a project has, again, we just talked about this for PSH, another source of funding we want to see. So this is a little different. It's $4,000. It's a little bit less than PSH, but it is up to $9,000. And again, this was just voted on by the steering committee. So please make sure you get those right. You can apply as an expansion for rapid rehousing, and you can apply for rental assistance, supportive services. And for DV, they can apply for admin funding. For DOH, a regular rapid rehousing, you may apply for indirect funds, but not admin funding. Okay. So if you're applying for DV rapid rehousing, CCADV serves as the fiduciary agent for agency for the rental assistance. And what's a little different for the rapid rehousing DV bonus is you're going to talk in your application a couple different questions about how you're going to meet the needs of survivors and different outcomes. And there's kind of a series of different questions that are DV specific. Do we have a question, Shannon?
You have a question.
Yep.
Are the funding levels, the supportive services funding levels that you were talking about, annualized? So for instance, if you have a 6-month program, would it be half of that, half of the amount?
So it is per unit annually. So yes, so it's
So we do ask in the application, how many units are you planning to have at a point in time? And then also, how many are you planning to have for the whole year? So Liz, you're saying for it that you would answer you would do the funding limit for the whole year.
Yes. So
like if you're having 10
rapid rehousing project, it doesn't matter how long people stay in my program. If I have 10 units for the year, I can max out at $90,000. But I don't keep doing it each time a household flips, right? So it's for the year for that unit.
Thank you.
All right.
Next slide.
Next slide.
All right, this is me.
Oh, this
So
is-
how to apply. I'm going to walk through some of the Zengen screens. We have screenshots here, and here linked are instructions for the regular COC bonus application. And then there's a separate, as we talked about earlier, there's a separate application and profile for the DV. So both of those are linked on this slide. So if you applied last year for a regular COC bonus, your profile is still saved, and that's the page that it's going to take you to as soon as you log in, your profile. So you don't have to redo the whole thing, but there may be new questions. So So, and there for sure is new questions because you're going to talk about the project you're going to submit for. So the name of the project, and that would be different this year, possibly if you're not applying for the same thing. So look through that, but you don't have to redo the whole thing. And then the same for DV. The DV profile is saved. If you applied for a DV bonus last year, the DV profile is same. There are for sure new questions for you there. So look through all the information there, but you don't have to reinvent everything. You can use what worked for you last year and supplement with what you need to do new this year. We also want to encourage you, I don't know, you may say this on another slide, Liz, but if there are things that worked for you last year, and there are many good, very good applications that we did receive last year. If you did not get feedback that we were wanting more of this or that, I encourage you to use what you did last year, and you could just copy and paste. This is the profile, so you won't need to copy and paste, but for the next part of the application, if there's some responses that you can just copy and paste, feel free to go ahead and do that if it's the same response and you don't have anything to add to it. Creating a project applicant profile. So we just talked about that. These are the links here to get you into the profile. If you've never been in Zengen before, it's going to ask you for a username. Or your username will be your email, and then create a password. And here are the stipulations that you need to meet, the criteria you need to meet to create a password in Zengen. And then click login. If you already have one, it'll recognize you. You'll need to put in your password and it'll take you to your existing profile. So once you're in, and if you're new, it'll say create a profile. You'll see this link here. If not, you'll already see your profile and you can click to edit or open or edit your profile. Creating a profile. So with every part of the application, all fields with an asterisk are required. If you need to stop in the middle of either part, you can always save a draft. So that's good to know. And then you can just pick up where you left off when you come back in. Click open or revise or whatever the text says. The homepage appears after creation of profile with the green complete to the right of the profile, and click the blue edit. So that's how you would edit it. So you can, if it says complete, you can still click edit. You could still go in and make revisions. You can make revisions up until, this says 6/2 deadline, it's 6/6 deadline,
Okay,
right?
I was just going to say that. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, apologies for
that.
that.
That's fine. We'll update that. It is 6/6. Yeah.
Yeah. So just after 6/6, there's no edits on any part of the application at all, the profile or the rest of the questions that are more project specific. If you click on it after that point, it'll just say, sorry, this opportunity is closed. Once created, the new application, it'll take you to the next page where you can start your own application, or you can click one of these links to move to the application portion. So new project application. So you've already done the profile part. Now it's time to start your application. For a DV bonus, if you applied last year, it's going to have your application that you submitted last year still there, and it'll just be a plus and add another. But for the non-DV bonus applicants, it'll say get started here, and you see this screen and click the open button to continue. So again, everything with an asterisk is required, and use save draft. When you're done and ready to submit, click mark complete. I want to remind everybody that if there's a question that's required and for some reason it doesn't apply to you, we tried to not do that too much, but you can just put not applicable, NA. If you put some text in there that implies that tells us that this isn't applicable to you, it'll let you move forward. Or if it's a dollar figure, if it's a number, just put 0 as the amount. So it'll let you move forward that way too.
I have a question. It's Margaret.
Yep.
Sure.
I sort of remember last year that you couldn't see the whole application questions until you completed each part. I sort of remember that. So was there a way you can send like a copy of the application questions so we're, so you can prepare for those offline? Because it's sort of like you couldn't, I sort of remember, maybe I'm wrong this time, but I sort of remember like you couldn't get to the next page until you completed one page.
So it's going to be similar this year because of conditional logic. So for instance, well, think about if it's DV specific, there's only rapid rehousing available. So that'll be less, like for the regular application, if you choose PSH, only certain questions are going to show up. If you choose rapid, different questions are going to show up. So it is going to be that. To answer your question about can you get a copy, I have to look into it and I can try to make that available. But just by going into
the best thing to do is go in, spend a couple minutes and just answer a few questions, and then you have the ability to PDF. But
no,
for
but you
the
still,
most part, you can see the questions. Like there, I think it was last year because there were two. So for DV, there were different models. But if you go in, let's say for the regular, and you choose PSH, you're going to see most of the questions. You might have to provide some more detail. But if you spent like 5 minutes in the application, you could then PDF it. And then you know what the questions are.
All right.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
I think that's probably the best way to do it, because otherwise I'd be guessing at, the 10 types of different scenarios that would have different things pop up, and I inevitably miss something. Like, oh no, there's this obscure type of project that's still possible, and another thing would pop up. Yeah. So, but Margaret, be in touch with us if that's not working for you. Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. New project application 3. So when you mark complete, when you and it says mark complete, it's still not submitted. The application is still not submitted. It takes you to the screen and there's the green submit button. And once you hit the green submit button, that is when it's submitted. So if you do click that, and for some reason it's before the deadline and you realize, there's still some changes that I wanted to make, be in contact with myself or Liz, make it me, and we will make it reopenable for you so you can make some edits. So once you do click that button though, you do receive a message on the screen that says this has been submitted, and you will also receive whoever your primary contact person that you've said is submitting this will also receive an email just confirming that it's submitted. So you could still, if you've submitted it, you can click view and you can see what you said. You just can't edit unless you contact us if you need to edit. New project. If you want to go on and do an additional project, if you submitted for a PSH and now you want to do a rapid or something, go back to the home page, and at the top left, there's going to be a little menu with a few saying this is your path that you've been to so far. And to the left, one of the first things is going to be homepage. You can click back on homepage, and that'll allow you to get to the screen where you can just click that plus sign and add another to do an additional application. These are directions to print. We do encourage you to print just to save a record. And we also encourage you to save a copy of that email. Maybe you could PDF that email to just as verification of your timely submission. And printing or saving a PDF is also a good idea as verification of your submission as a record. So TIPSIN's engine. Required fields, right? If we are asking you, if we on the directions are giving you a bulleted list or a list with semicolons, commas, we want you to address this, 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 and this, please address all of those things. It shouldn't be the case, but if there's something that you say, this really doesn't apply to us, or we do this a different way, tell us the different way that you do it, or tell us this doesn't apply and why it doesn't apply to you. Because really that's when these are being scored, those are all the things that the scorers look for. Did they answer all the questions, and then how fully did they answer all the questions? like we just talked about, there's conditional logic throughout. So if you're applying for one thing and then a different thing, and you're confused why you're not being asked the same questions, it's probably because you're doing a different type of project now, or your responses are different. There are word count limits, and those are listed in parentheses after the question, so pay attention to those. It will not allow, if there's a word count limit, it will not allow you to go use more words. Pay attention to households and units. Pay attention to all of your parts of your application match. Like if you're saying you're doing a PSH for 10 people, make sure your narratives talk about 10 people, make sure everything flows along with one another. When you're talking about budgets, supportive services, case management for 10 people, and this is how much we're going to pay the case manager for the hours they're spending with 10 people, so on and so forth. If you're doing legal services or childcare for 10 families, you know, make sure those things match. Budget item descriptions, that's conditional logic. If you put a dollar figure in for a certain budget line item for supportive services, you will be asked to put in a description. This year we put in sample examples of how to do budget descriptions in a way that really HUD kind of spells out for us to do it. So pay attention to those examples because the format is helpful for us and for the people who score the projects. There are places where we say a detachment might be needed, so pay attention to that. And then if they are, a field will pop up where you can upload your attachment. As Liz talked about for rapid rehousing, you're not allowed to submit for admin funds, but you are encouraged to use indirect cost rate for some costs that might be associated with administering a budget line item, rental assistance, supportive services. And in the instructions, there's a lot more information about indirect cost rate, NCRA, which it talks about here. So we encourage you to use the resources that are linked in that document. And we've done a whole webinar on NCRA because that you could really get lost in that black hole. Evidence of site control. This is if a project involves capital development, and what we're really looking for, if this is your project, is that you're meeting a timeline for when you're going to need the services, that the project is going to be really up and running in a timely fashion. Scoring factors are coming soon, and we will put them on the COC application page on the website when they're available. Application tips. So really highlight what makes your agency and project unique. As you can imagine, some of the people who review these applications do so year in and year out. So what's going to capture their attention is what makes you unique, how you work well with others. If you already have established relationships with these 5 agencies, entities, and processes whereby you work well together, tell us that. Another area that people were looking for that didn't always hit the mark was data. So if we're asking you, for instance, for information on unmet need, tell us who exists in your area that is going to need these services, and tell us with data like what is that CAN website that shows you all? CT CAN data, I think it is, that has all
Yep.
CCEH, right? But I think, yeah, CT, thanks, Lauren. CTCANdata.org has a lot of data that you could pull straight from to put in your applications. This is the number of families, this is the number of individuals, this is how many chronic homeless, and so on and so forth. So that's really helpful when the scorers are looking at the applications.
Yeah, I think that's it. It's like Shannon said, because we're trying to channel the scores for you, that they want specifics. So it's not just like, we'll go to our local workforce development agency and help them. You know, what's the name of it? Who's the person? Maybe to say, we've had 15 successful applicants from last year. So I think data, specifics, and then really just like someone's reading this, they really want to be able to wrap their head around what's your plan and how does the plan make sense, I think. Yep.
Mhm. So some of this I talked about already, parts of the application matching one another. Make sure you meet the match. Again, I'm just going to remind you that it will allow you to put in a match amount that's lower than the 25% requirement. So just do the math on that, and it's all spelled out in the directions, what is required there. Ensure for supportive services, the project meets the minimum as Liz talked about and doesn't exceed the maximum also. FAQs. So this year we're going to post an FAQ document on the COC application page. So we'll gather some of the questions that you all have asked today, and as we move forward, if we get questions that are similar, we're going to keep track of those and put them all in one place and publish a document. Again, because this is a competitive process, we like to make the same information available to all the people interested in applying. So we will post that. And because of that, we're going to say there's a deadline to submit your questions, and that's going to be June 1st. So that if there's any research that has to be done, we can get that information out to all of you in a timely manner, and respect that you're not doing everything last minute.
Yeah, and it's, I know it's so hard because everyone's so busy and it's a job on top of a job on top of a job, but we really can't encourage you enough to just, when you can carve out some time earlier is better, so that you can ask us questions and understand what's going on, instead of scrambling last minute and then you can't find a password, or you can't, so at least I would say, if you think you're going to apply, try to spend a few minutes, and you can even do it with us afterwards if you want to stay on. Make sure you can get yourself into the application, like if that can be folks' goal, so you don't have technical difficulties and you're not scrambling last minute. And knock wood, I don't want to curse us. It's, I think it works well. I think we keep working to streamline it, but it's always better to hop in earlier rather than later.
Margaret has a question. How does CT-BOS decide the type of applications to accept every year?
Yep,
Liz,
that's a great question. So at the March steering committee meeting.
So I was calling to confirm Ben's appointment for Wednesday.
Hold on just a minute. Okay, go ahead.
At the March steering committee meeting, we had a discussion about what would be the funding priorities. And then at the April steering committee meeting, we voted. And part of it has to do with conversations that have been happening at steering committees really all year long. What should be the priorities? Where is there money? Where isn't there money? Where is there a need? But it was, the final vote was in April on this.
So again, reminder, due date is June 6th. Refer to the new project applications early and often for all the definitions, program descriptions, allowable expenses, all of that stuff on indirect cost and NCRA. And there's links to lots of other really good information there. Sign up for CT-BOS emails to make sure that you get any updates. We'll let you know when the scoring document is posted. We'll let you know when the FAQ is posted in those emails. And then there's additional links on the COC application page.
Yep. There is a question. We don't know, was it announced how much funding is going to be available? We don't know. No. So we'll know once the Nofo, whatever they call it this year, is out, but we don't know. But historically, we've always done it this way. We would get the applications out. Last year for DV, we actually did DV separately, and we didn't think it made sense to do it that way. So that's why we're doing the process together this year.
And they did say there's going to be DV bonus funds. I believe they also said, because I just went to the debrief last year from last year's Nofo, and they said, I believe, Liz, correct me if you think I'm wrong, I think last year there were 2 years worth of DV bonus funding. So DV, we were heavy on DV, HUD was heavy on that amount of funds last year, and that won't be the case this year. Questions? Any questions before I move on to going through Zengen on the screen?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Or maybe I'm asking this too soon, but do we have to know upfront, like in this application, if this is going to be an expansion or a new project?
Do you have to know?
Yes.
Is that your question?
Yes.
I think it's helpful.
I mean,
Like, give me a scenario. I think it's helpful to know.
context, and maybe this is just something I need to think through myself and not, other people don't need to worry. So like we have 2 projects right now, and like if our intent was to consolidate those 2 projects in this next renewal, we wouldn't be able to apply, we wouldn't be able to expand and consolidate at the same time. So I need to prepare to know whether it's more a good, better use of our time to consolidate or to expand or to start a new one. You know, it's like we have to juggle what the priorities are.
Yeah, let's ponder that. I hear you on that. So let's talk.
Okay.
Let's talk and figure that out. I hear you.
Yeah. That makes
Good question.
Yes. All right. Any other questions before I move on to looking at Zenjin? And if you've done Zenjin, you're good with Zenjin, feel free to hop off. And we thank you for being here and appreciate your time, but also feel free to stay on if you want to go through it.
Yeah, and so I'm going to stop the recording. We're going to stay here just to like hop in Zenjin. But again, if we can just reiterate, like try to get in as early as you can. And again, we're not saying this to the busiest people on the planet. But if you can take a few minutes and just make sure you're logged on, make sure it's working, that's really helpful and would make everyone feel better. We are here for questions. Please don't hesitate to ask us a question. There are never any dumb questions. We're all in this together. So I'm going to stop the recording. Thank you for joining us. And we're still going to stay on, and Shannon's going to do a little Zenjin demo. But thank you and enjoy the afternoon.
Thank you.